Good luck to the Dons. It would be nice to stay alive for yet another week. Even though it doesn't look great, we remain hopeful. I say the Dons by 5 points.
I'm going to go the Bombers by 26 points.
Oh! This is absolutely Essendon. It's our round 23 review game against the Giants. Kind of saw it going a little bit differently in my mind. What an afternoon that was. Beyond embarrassing. What do you call it when you just can't? It's all going pear-shaped, but you just can't stop watching the game like I did. I watched every last second of it. It's an ailment. It's a disease, I think. Essendonitis?
Morbid?
Self-flagellation-itis?
Perverted?
Yeah. It was terrible, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I applaud you because I didn't watch the whole game.
You didn't? You pulled the pin? I think a lot of people pulled the pin.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I'm afraid to say I did. I mean, I didn't because I'm not a loyal supporter of the football club. I wouldn't be doing this shit if that was the case. But I couldn't watch it. I simply couldn't watch it.
It was most unexpected.
Yeah, but
in many ways, we're not surprised.
I think this one goes to surprised. I'm not sure whether surprised is exactly the right adjective that I would use. Astounded.
Yeah.
Dumbfounded.
Flummoxed. Perplexed.
Flummoxed. Discombobulated.
Definitely
perhaps.
That one. Yeah.
And perhaps a little oxymoron. But
yes, indeed. Thank you to everyone that commented. We were blown away by the number of people that actually stick around to.
So you watch. All right, we get the point.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Never again shall we question.
No, shall never doubt.
Our loyal
Screw
viewers.
the analytics, whatever they're telling you. Apparently, people
do watch.
They're hanging around till the end. So thank you, much obliged, and thank you again today for pressing the play button. This is probably going to be not so much a match review. I think it might be.
I think this is all about gathering around, putting our arms around each other, and not in a naughty way, but in a comforting kind of way.
Can we try and work out what the freak is going on?
So I think that's really this.
Can we do that?
We did
I'm hot.
We did a video. Stop! Will you stop being so upbeat?
Yeah.
You're too.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, we did a video a few weeks back called "Where to from Here." It's on our playlist or on our channel if you want to watch it and you haven't seen it. We probably went a little early with that.
Possibly.
Because where to from here?
Well,
from here?
It wasn't early because I think we kind of felt what was in the air.
Yeah. And I think it's a good, if we're going to start anywhere, let's start with the last sort of 8 or 9 weeks because as a football club, something happened.
Yeah.
And we're going to try and get to the bottom of that in this episode. I doubt we will find the answers, but we'll certainly start digging.
It's an 8-part series.
This could be a long one. So grab a cocoa, grab a spliff if that's your thing.
Yeah.
And please smoke responsibly.
Yes. Because the first half of the season, it was almost nice to be an Essendon supporter again.
There was a spring in the step.
There was something. There were green shoots.
Sir Bradley had emerged.
We could see something growing.
We could.
We thought.
But
it was a weed.
Someone. Well, we know about the weed. But someone certainly did put weed killer all over us after that bye because the early warning signs for this team and its decline in the last half of the season was the Fremantle game, in my opinion, and that was the first game after the bye, where Fremantle, as most people know, have been very inconsistent this year.
Yeah.
Sure, we were going to Perth, but the game prior to that for us was that thumping win over Carlton.
Yes.
Peter Wright was back in the side. He'd kicked 5 goals on his return.
Yep.
And it was across to Fremantle, who were pretty much on their knees. And we got out of the blocks beautifully that day. If you remember the first quarter, we were all over them, but just couldn't put the score on the board.
That's right.
And then it just kind of fell apart, and Fremantle ran all over us. That was the first sign of, hang on, where did that performance come from? After a very good first half of the season where we were absolutely competitive against all comers. And from the Fremantle game onwards, it's just been kind of like one disaster after another. There's been a couple of high points in and amongst that lot.
The Adelaide game
Sure.
at Marvel, that was a good performance. They came back to get within 18 points, though.
They
seemed to
didn't
switch
they?
off.
Yeah, we couldn't put them away.
No.
But certainly the game, the playing, the skills, the excitement levels were there.
We looked pretty solid.
They were solid.
We looked pretty good.
But sure, I mean, in the end, though, Adelaide did peg us back. But it was sort of being hailed as the return of the giant. The Bombers were back. You know, the sleeping giant had awakened, and we were fifth on the ladder. And even some pundits were saying, you know, this side could go all the way. Well, how wrong were they? And you know, this is what makes this whole process so hard to kind of understand, is that, yeah, there was that happening. There were those positive signs, and it's just gone boof. And I just don't know the answer. So I think we could probably start to talk about... We're not going to bother talking about the GWS game too much. I mean, I think that just is indicative of the problem. But
yeah, I mean, look, but I think it just adds that the banner that they put up before the game. Now, I don't know, would the players, Essendon players, have seen that banner? Because it was very cheeky. It was pointing to the fact that we hadn't won a final since before
they were created,
conceived.
Yeah.
And you know, really taking the piss, which is a very cheeky, gutsy thing to do, where the stakes so high in the game.
Yeah.
But it's like they knew the result before the game started.
You wouldn't put that up unless you were extremely confident you're going to win, because that could come back and haunt you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, a cheeky run-through banner from the GWS cheer squad. Did the Essendon players know? Probably not. Would they care? Probably not. But for us fans that have had to endure that embarrassment for the last 20 years, yeah, that probably got under the skin of a few supporters. But, you know, honestly speaking, someone should have said to them, they're taking the piss.
Yeah.
You're not going to let them do that, are you? So I don't know if they saw it. But if they did, they certainly didn't respond.
Yeah.
And they allowed GWS to humiliate them.
Yeah. Yeah. They physically, they were a bigger team. But that does not maketh for a 126-point loss. I'm sorry. There's it's still 18 against 18 on the field, for God's sakes. And we were, you know, just not in the game. I mean, for God's sake, the GWS players were fighting amongst themselves for the ball. I saw Tom Green put a tackle on Whitfield.
Give it to me. Yeah, look, I mean, 100, what was it, 130 points?
126.
126 points. That type of loss is not an uncommon thing. It happens. Teams lose by over 100 points. But I don't think I can remember a time when a side that is playing for a finals place against a team that's in the same field that they are, separated
by 3 percentage points,
can be just so brutally smashed like that.
Yeah.
That is a rarity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've lost games by 100 points before. And within a year of won premierships, you know, that happens. But this is different. This was not about losing by 100 points. This was not about game plan or, you know, coaching. There is something completely toxic going through this football club.
Yeah.
And for those players to play as if they were already planning their end-of-season trip, when we have been pumping cash into their coffers as members of the football club for so many years, is a disgusting disgrace. And I've never felt so negative about this football club as I do at the moment. And trust me, I've been around a long time.
Yeah.
I've seen the highs and lows, but you know, this is as low as this football club is. Even through the dark periods of the saga, at least there was a bit of spine in this football club.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, whatever Brad Scott's doing down there, I'm not going to judge Brad Scott on a single season.
No,
but I tell you what, if he isn't shaking in his boots about what he's taken on, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I think it goes to the DNA of the club. I think. I don't know if we've got a microscope handy, but I think if you took a slither and you put it on, under the microscope at a molecular level, there seems to be something.
It'd be these little bacteria that look somewhat like Adrian Dodoro, I think.
Possibly, just chomping on other, just chomping on the other cells.
Spray it with some mortine.
There's something going, not going right. It's not all coalescing, and. You talk about GWS. Yes, but honestly, we made Jesse Hogan look like.
Jesse Hogan was surprised.
He must have been.
Jesse Hogan must be in shock. Has said, I don't know how I did that. Well, I do. It's called Essendon. And we managed to play the most out-of-form players into form, particularly key forwards.
Yeah.
How many times this year have we had a key forward have his best ever performance against us?
Yeah.
And I'm not blaming individual players for that.
No, this is not. Today's not about individual players.
We haven't got the worst defence in the league, but they somehow just wilt when they're exposed to a half decent tall forward. I just wanted to talk a little bit. We'll go through this, but I just to kind of wrap up on the GWS thing because really no one wants to discuss that. I don't think that result, as you alluded to, is the consequence of any one thing.
No, it's not.
And so what I think we should do today is perhaps dig a little deeper into what's going on behind the scenes and see whether there is some, connection between the collapse of our on-field performance with how this football club's run and the culture of the football club. As it has been for some time now.
Because it's got to be all those elements that come together. Now, and the reason why we even sort of started this thing was because last year around the time, Paul Brasher was still in charge. Then they talked about this internal review, and we thought, okay, but they're actually running the internal review. And then he comes out with this video and he says, it's there'll be changes, but it'll be incremental. And we all got very wound up and started talking about doing this because it was like, this needs to be more than incremental. So then David Barham came in, there were some changes made, but maybe not enough.
Yeah, I wonder, I think maybe this is the starting point of our discussion is what happened last year because that in many ways is sort of set up this year. But just to what you said about the internal review, what organisation that has been so inept as Essendon for so long goes, let's see if we can get to the bottom of that by conducting a review on ourselves and not getting in an independent party to do that.
Yeah.
Which organisation on the planet does that's a boys' club. That's a boys' club mentality of we're going to make the noise and put it out there and say, we're aware there's a problem, but in the end it's just lip service. And I think David Barham clearly recognised that because Brasher and Xavier Campbell were, like pigs at a trough for far too long.
Yeah.
And they were no way were they going to put the spotlight on themselves as being a part of the problem. And so this was a ridiculous and embarrassing joke, which has become quite the norm with Essendon. So David Barham comes along.
Yes.
What do you think of what did he do or what did he see when he booted Brasher out the door?
Yeah.
What was the response and was it enough?
Yeah, well, this is the point because and obviously, he saw that there were some gaps in the coaching side of things. So, he made a move there. I don't know. I'm not across sort of all the other decisions, in the background, but we've sort of seen, now Josh Marnie's sort of going, but that's been 1 year on.
Sure.
But, the fact is that all the off-field is almost more important than the on-field. And when, Richmond came out a few years ago, they were ridiculed. I remember on the Footy Show, Brendan Gale, for their sort of vision of 3 premierships within 10 years. They were mocked. But they managed to put all the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah, but it started in the corridors of power, right?
It did. That's where it needs to start. So I don't know. Maybe some moves have been made, but maybe nowhere near enough. And like my dad that prunes his fig tree every 3 years, it often needs to be brutal. And I just think, fucking Dad, it's not going to survive. Yeah. And when he said, "What are you bloody talking about?" And fucking there's figs. The next year it's flowing with figs. And I think maybe it needs that kind of Maybe that kind of prune was missing.
No disrespect to our Italian
I can
friends
do
out
it.
there.
It's my dad.
Yeah,
I can talk
sure.
about him any way I want.
Yeah, no, you can. But anyway, no, look, I mean, maybe we should get your dad down to the football club because I swear to God it needs a little more pruning.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. It's, Barham, if Barham was an oncologist and saying we've got a bit of a tumour and we need to get it out. Well, you're not going to get healthy unless we get this tumour out. Well, he only went halfway.
Yeah.
And he left a little bit of the cancer in the club. And that's the problem. You know, there's too much political goings on at Essendon for it to ever be a successful football club. Because as much as they've said it's all about the football this year, clearly it isn't. Because we've heard about the Dodoro, Marnie bitch fight going on. You know, there's no uniformity in opinion. There's too many people in that football club with too much power making decisions behind the scene. And you will ask, well, how do I know that? You're just going to have to trust that I do. And, you know, the problem is we can't have, mid-management making the decisions. It's got to be from the top. So I haven't heard boo out of Craig Votso this year. Now, he might have come in and gone, look, I'm just going to sit in the background. I'm not going to be a Xavier Campbell. But seriously, Craig Votso, you're the CEO of this football club. Where the hell are you? And why are you not stepping in and speaking to the members of this football club to explain what happened on the weekend and how you're going to fix it? Because I'm sorry, if you're running Essendon Football Club, you just can't sit in the background, mate. They're going to eat you alive. So get out there and say something or piss off back to Perth because we need some leadership in this football club. David Barham, where the hell are you? You came out, like a bull out of the gate last year. It was brutal, it was messy, it was ugly, but we could all see that you had the right intent.
Yeah.
Even though you cocked up the sacking of Rutten and you went after Clarkson and it was a mess and you hired that guy from that right-wing religious group. I mean, you got it wrong, but in the end you might have got it right. Now,
intentions.
And so we respect that. But why stop there? Who's stopping you from completing that exercise, from removing all of the cancer? In fact, all you've done is allow it to grow back. And here we are. The last 9 weeks of this football season has been an utter humiliation for our football club, for the people who pay your salary. So,
well, on that note, I mean, I think, a big part of the issue is that Essendon is still living off its former glory. We've sort of touched on this throughout the year, right? Because we get the Anzac Day game, which is grand final-esque in stature.
Yeah.
There's the Dreamtime game.
Yeah.
We are still sort of, one of the marquee teams, if you like, right? So it's kind of hard to, like an addict that can only get better once they hit absolute rock bottom.
Yeah.
Essendon will never hit rock bottom because they're still a part of the whole AFL show, if you like.
Yeah.
We're still, we still get those games. And so I think that kind of still leveraging of past glory is kind of holding the club back.
Yeah.
Because they're just not making the brutal cuts. They're just not, we've said it before, the ruthless edge, that mongrel just hasn't been there for so long. And all the teams, they have that. They have that element. You cannot get to flag status without that element. You just cannot be too nice.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. And a club it's a business of emotions. That's why people keep signing up with the memberships, because it's an emotion thing. Any other world, the corporate world, you got this sort of record over the last 23 years, you go, I'm moving on. I'm over this brand.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
You'd be selling your shares.
But, like wedding photography, it's an emotion business. And so that's why. And I think they're taking almost unfair advantage of that.
Of our willingness to step up every year.
Yeah, and because people just keep signing up and they're just like, all right, well, there you go. There's 50% of the revenue stream locked in again.
Yeah. I mean, if I had $1 for every time I've heard someone say, well, I'm not renewing my membership until this club gets its shit together, and the first thing they do each year is renew their membership. I mean, just on the living off past glories, for those who haven't been out to Essendon's training facility, the hangar, I wouldn't really call it a facility, I'd call it a dump. But anyway, if you've been out there, it's a corporate wank fest, that place. It was built in the vision of Xavier Campbell so he could have a fancy office. But I've heard it's not particularly a great facility from some people who actually have football teams training out there. So let me just say this. You walk into the lobby and it's this sort of, it's like walking into the headquarters of Rio Tinto, and there's this large wall with these sort of glass boxes, and inside each box is one of our 16 premiership trophies.
Yeah.
A spectacular wall of glory. And then there's one box that's empty.
Right.
And it's got something like number 17, which is the next premiership. I just can't get over the self-indulgent, it's kind of like embarrassing
hubris,
living in the past. Take those trophies off the wall. Not a single player in that side on Saturday should be allowed to walk past those trophies. They should be put into an attic, locked away until we get off our arse and actually win the next one. And stop believing you're great. You're not. You haven't been good. You've been one of the worst performing clubs in the AFL competition for 2 decades. I mean, thank goodness there's been 2 expansion teams in the time that we've been shit, because the Gold Coast and GWS have kind of camouflaged or masked our utter incompetency as a football club. Look at GWS, or the Gold Coast get beaten by 100 points, and we live on. And then there was the game against Carlton this year on the King's birthday eve, and
yes,
both Carlton, so it wasn't just us, but both Carlton and Essendon lined the centre circle with their combined 32 premiership cups. Yeah. And the backlash in the media was quite apparent, where they were saying, how embarrassing for these 2 clubs to be, showing off their trophies from past glories when neither club has been even close to being relevant for more than 20 years. And that's the problem. And at least Carlton are kind of getting their stuff together at the moment. We'll see how they go.
In a big way.
But they're certainly well in advance of where we are. So, why would, if I was running that football club and one of those little marketing brainless twits down there came to me and said, we've got a good idea, we're going to pull our trophies out. And I'd say, are you full of it? Do you have any respect for our supporter base? We haven't won shit in 20 years, and you want to go out and show off stuff that, is almost 2.5 decades old? No, put it in the attic. We don't do that until we win our next trophy. And, frankly speaking, the way this club indulges in its own self-importance, it goes beyond being nauseous. And we've kind of put up with it because we're proud and we're supporters. But don't be proud of this club anymore. They don't deserve. There's no one at that football club today that had any role in winning those trophies. Nobody, other than perhaps Sheedy on the board.
Sheedy's on the board.
He should probably go too. But I'm sorry. So we're talking about the culture of arrogance at our football club, the self-indulgent behaviour of the football club, and then you've got the sort of political machinations going on in the background that no one seems to ever be able to get on top of. The controlling elements of the coterie groups there, the Essendonians and the Diamond Dons. I'll probably get a hit taken out on me for saying that, because half of them are in the underground world.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Well,
I don't know about
I
that.
do.
Allegedly.
Maybe. Right. And, people like Dodoro, doing business deals on the side with half of the, the industry and people in the AFL. It's just, why are these guys all running businesses and property developers and doing, what's his name? Xavier Campbell was running his own private brewery business while he was meant to be managing the Essendon Football Club. Who's stepping in and saying, hey, don't you have another job to do? So anyway, this club from top to bottom is completely rotten. Yeah. And until they get rid of all the riffraff and the dregs from past years out of there and bring in fresh, talented, world-class people who don't have an agenda, we're going nowhere. Brad Scott will be out of the door next year if he has another year like this, for sure. There's no way they're going to honour his contract if he has another season like this season.
What about the people that say, hey, easy does it. Easy does it. Like, Richmond were terrible just before they turned things around and put it all together. Geelong were Scheisenhausen and then, very quickly put it all together. You need to just have a little bit of patience.
Don't give me the patience.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. No. We have been patient now for a long time. And
beyond that.
And in that time, really, haven't done much at all. We've had very little to hang our hat on.
Patience is not something that this football club is entitled to for another day. I need to see some response right now. And I want to talk about the leadership in that club. I'm sorry, we didn't want to talk about individuals, but I'm afraid if you're going to be made the captain of the football club, you've got to be prepared to come under the spotlight. And so Zach Merritt, I think Zach Merritt is is our best player. He's one of the best players in the AFL, not questioning that. He's done a great job for most of the year as the captain, but I've got to say I'm extraordinarily disappointed that after the game against GWS, he didn't front up to the media and at least give some explanation for why they played that way.
What do you mean? What
do I mean? He didn't front up to the media. He didn't say sorry for what we had to endure, what the supporters have had to endure.
Oh, hang on. What club says? What club ever says sorry? There's not a lot of sorries going around. Oh, maybe. I don't know. But
I want to hear you explain why he shouldn't say sorry.
It would be refreshing. It would be incredibly refreshing and, you don't think transparent.
You don't think those players, those 22 and a half players, 23, whatever they play now, you don't think that they need to actually face the people that pay their salaries and say, you didn't deserve that? I'm sorry. That, to me, that performance demands an apology from the football club. If they're serious about going anywhere, they can't protect the players for that effort. They have to come out and in some way, directly or indirectly, through social media or whether it's looking down the camera and saying to the supporters, you've stood by us for so long through drug sagas, through incompetency, through management and coaching changes, and you deserve better.
It's all falling apart.
You don't think that they should be doing that? They should be. And I know, look, I'm sure that there's a whole bunch of people watching this going, this guy's fucking full of shit. You're welcome to leave any time.
There might be a few.
Yeah, you're welcome to go, because if any of you are sitting there finding an excuse for the performance of this football club, I'm sorry, you've been duped. You've been absolutely sold a dummy, because this football club is an embarrassment. How many times do you hear of players going to Essendon and going, I'm surprised at how slack their training standards are. I'm surprised at how poor their facilities are. I'm surprised at the coaching setup. This is something that's been going on for years.
You know what flies in the face of that, though? Just for a moment. Sure. Mason Redmond said when he re-signed, I don't know who he said this to, I don't know where I saw this, but he said that a big part of his decision was that he was encouraged about the off-field situation at Essendon. He thought he'd seen an improvement. Now, if you're coming off last year, you could argue it was a very low base. There wasn't much needed really to improve what was going on there. But that does suggest something, possibly.
Maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah,
or it was just part of the narrative.
I'm sure the paycheck probably influenced that outcome.
Probably. We've got real issues here.
Yeah, look, I don't think there's any doubt that they've shown some signs this year, but then it was just completely washed away. Everything they worked towards in the first half of the season has been destroyed. I can't find any redeeming factor for this football team in the last 8-10 weeks. There's nothing. It's just a soulless, pitiful football club at the moment. And even Matthew Lloyd was saying on one of the football shows that, how insipid this football club is. A great of our football club
that word's
has had enough. Enough. And you know what? We can make excuse. We can forgive and say, give Brad Scott another year. Of course we're going to give Brad Scott another year. But then, it's just rinse and repeat. We'll be back here this time next year, probably pulling our hair out going, why did it happen again? Our list is not good enough. It's quite clear to me, and I'm sure to many of you and to you who've watched football for many years, is that our list is not good enough, and that's partially the reason. But it's just one element. That's the thing. Sure, a pretty big element. Now I might argue it's 35%. You might argue it's 65%. Everything needs to come together. Look at the Bulldog. The Bulldogs. You could argue theirs is probably one of the best lists. They're going to miss finals.
all the elements need to come together.
Yeah, but
coaching,
they've played in 2 grand finals in the last 7 years.
Yeah, true. They got in 2016. True, they've had something. They've tasted some success.
Look, the list is not good enough, and we can only get better by having a better list management process. So we've got an individual in that football club at the moment who's responsible for putting together our list. That's been his job for more than 20 years, and we still haven't been able to put together not even a premiership challenging list. We haven't been able to win a final. And the old stat, we've only had 15 All-Australian selections in 22 years, whereas other clubs are in the 40s and 50s. So, our guys are not up to it. There's too many B-grade footballers, and with all due respect to them, players that were picked in mid-season drafts and, rookie drafts and so on, there's a reason why they're selected in those drafts and not going at number 5 in the national draft. It's because they're not good enough. And we're not going to get better until we accept that a lot of our players just simply aren't up to the standard. We have too many of the same type of players. We've got too many little midfielders, too many skinny, tall defenders. We just don't have the right balance of players across the whole, 40 or whatever the number in a squad is. So that's got to be addressed. And we all know where that starts from. And until this club addresses our recruiting, our scouting, our list management issues, until they're serious about that and go, thank you, Adrian, you've been a great and loyal servant of the club, but you failed and it's time for you to leave. And if Dodoro doesn't actually walk out the door voluntarily after the performance we saw on the weekend, that guy is seriously committed to something else going on inside the football club. But yeah, and can I just say, even if Adrian Dodoro had done an incredible job over the last 23 years, 23 years is too long, and it's time to go. Give him the gold watch, tell him to leave, because, and not to say that that's going to solve all the problems, but it's got to be at least a step in the right direction. If playing football is ultimately about the players on the 18 guys on the field, we just don't have players good enough. You look at that GWS midfield. We said beforehand in our preview, we actually named the players who ultimately were the top 5 players on the fantasy points rankings. We named them. It's that easy.
It seemed to be a surprise, though, to the coaching panel on the day. There didn't seem to be very little to address. They just ran right through us all day.
Yeah, but how hard is it to pick that? I can see what makes a good AFL football. I just want to talk about our drafting. Nick Cox is an interesting example. Now, I still think Nick Cox can become an AFL standard footballer. He's not that at the moment, but he was picked in the 2020 draft. I think he went at number 8 or 9 or whatever. And, it was based on his junior football years, because that's all you can base it on. What have they done in their junior football years? Now, Nick Cox at 17 was 198 centimetres. He was a big kid. And he was throwing little kids all over the park. And they go, have a look at this guy. He's amazing. But he wasn't an AFL footballer. And you've got to be able to see that physically he was not going to be an AFL footballer for a long time. So, okay, maybe they drafted him and thought, I'll give him 5 years and he may mature and he may get stronger and bigger. But, just because a kid is bullying other kids in under 16 football does not necessarily mean that's going to translate into AFL standards. It does sometimes, you get lucky, but mostly it doesn't. So our selection of junior footballers, young kids, and knowing how they're progressing, their trajectory, is pitiful. We're just constantly picking the wrong kind of guys physically. So anyway, that's an issue. We need to fix that desperately.
But I think it's all elements. I mean, apparently our VFL program's got holes in
Disaster.
it. Not treating that seriously enough. Then let's talk about the strength and conditioning.
Just want to say thanks, Xavier, for that, by the way. Cheers. If he wasn't focusing on bloody brewing god-awful beer, he might have actually spent some time fixing the VFL side, which is a shambles right now.
So there's another element, right? Okay. So then you get to the strength and conditioning. Now, I don't know if they made an appointment this year, but our medium performance manager has just
Sean Murphy.
Right. Okay. So because there's a point or the talk is that, we're running out of steam. It's the last few weeks, but as we sort of said last week, you've got teams like Hawthorn. I think the list is younger than ours. They're firing now, absolutely firing at this time of the year. So I think my point is, as much as I've been hard to spit it out, it's a whole bunch of elements that all need to coalesce, synergize, and come together. It isn't just, one might have a higher weighting, but that isn't happening. So how do we make that happen?
Well, look, it's got to happen as of today. And, we've got time to fix this. But someone's got to be committed to doing it. So I think David Barham's got to come back for sort of part 2 of his, sweeping out of the club. He did it. He started it last year. He's got to finish the job. And, it really, to me, anyone who's been associated with this football club for any period of time up until last year needs to go, because that was an era of mediocrity and incompetency. They've all got to go. And any successful business organisation will tell you that that's how you've got to do it. You can't keep looking after people, jobs for the boys. It just doesn't work. So Barham's got to make a statement. And I think it starts with the Collingwood game this week. And whilst, making sweeping changes to the playing list or the squad selection for the Collingwood game doesn't change anything, at least they're making a statement. And I would start with some of the big name players in this side need to be given a week off and told, you can go on your trip to Bali early this week because you're just not up to it. Think about what you want to be as a footballer, and you come back early in pre-season and you get yourself right. But there are some big name players who I would be saying, do not play this week. If Brad Scott's going to do Jai Menzies out for Will Snelling in or whatever, then he's taking the piss. He needs to make a big statement, and it needs to be a statement of saying to these guys who just let us down on the weekend against GWS, you're out. Go and hang your head in shame. It's not good enough. But we live in a woke era, and you're not allowed to hurt people's feelings, are you?
What if we come out and win? Will you take this all back? Last 30 minutes?
Would you? I don't know.
Honestly, if we were to somehow, I can't see it at all. But if we were to somehow win on Friday night against Collingwood, I would even be more angry. Because
that's exactly what I was thinking.
WTF? Yeah. How do you go from the GWS game to that? How can you do that to the supporters?
Yeah.
It's a bit unfair.
It would just be the ultimate slap in the face, wouldn't it? It's to say, don't. They'd be watching this show. They'd have it on at the hangar before
always
section,
on in the background,
and go, we're going to show that guy, and this guy, and we're going to prove they're idiots.
Because that would just hurt. Yeah. That would really be a knife in the heart.
I would be disgusted by that, and I always love the team to win, but frankly speaking, I hope Collingwood tear them apart this week because, anything
I'm never
that
going to
helps,
hope for that.
Anything that helps us, a short-term pain.
Yeah.
But
you're saying that as part of the pruning.
Yeah.
As part of
absolutely.
Just clearing out the house.
Because, we've got to rip this bloody Band-Aid off and expose all the problems and sort them out. Whatever Brendan Gale did at Richmond needs to be done at Essendon. And, I know, look, every club comes out and says, we're going to win 3 premierships in the next 10 years. Because that's the business they're in. But I think with Richmond, they actually had a plan. And like you said, they attacked it from every level. But, the one thing they didn't do was throw the coach out on the street. So, I don't want to throw Brad Scott out on the street. But he's got to be given more support. He's got to be given better backup, better team lists, players, whatever, better fitness staff, better medicos, better diet, whatever it takes. Why we are not getting the first-class, world-class people in our club. I hear West Coast, who've had a pretty appalling year, but still managed to beat the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
I hear that they're doing global searches now for the best, fitness management, strength and conditioning people.
Yeah.
They're not looking just in their own backyard. They're going around the world, and they're going to
really?
go and pay a lot of money
to
get, and they've got the money to do it. But why? We've got the money too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Have a look at our injury list. Have a look at our rehabilitation and recovery times for our players. Joe Danaher. Whether it's true or not, I can't say. But apparently, just felt like leaving Essendon was going to be the best thing for his career because he would go to a football club where he was getting the right medical advice, the right rehabilitation, the right fitness and strength and conditioning
That is
guidance.
a travesty of if that is true.
A name that's a legend at our club.
If that is true, then that is just travesty.
Yeah,
It really
Connor
is.
McKenna left the club.
And
Sardi. McKenna came back to play again in the series at Brisbane, as everyone knows. And the question was put to him, would you consider going back to Essendon? And initially he said, I would never go back to that club. I think he softened that attitude when he spoke to Brad Scott. But initially, at least, Essendon wasn't even on his radar. So, we've got so many problems and we've got to sort it out. Collingwood, our great rival, why they are not the role model for us. They pruned out all the egos and the people who were sucking the lifeblood out of their club.
They certainly seem
and
to. And
have a look at them now.
Yeah. I mean, look, Craig McRae, he took them in 2021 from 17th to 4th. Yeah. And is now holding that position, ideally even improved off that with the same list. Yeah. And you talk about list, but I mean, really, are there that many superstars there amongst that group? But you know what?
There's a few, but
yeah, sure. But you know what? They play for each other. It's not about it's really not even about the fans. It's about the guy beside you. It's like a military mindset that they have. You can see it.
In what world is what's his name? Braden Maynard or in what world is he a superstar? But the guy is so rock solid.
Yeah.
Myercheck's one of the best footballers in the competition now. I mean, his father played for us.
Did he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So, and on it goes with that club. And you would have seen the footage, I'm sure, when Beau McCreary's mum came and addressed the players before the game. I think it was Mother's Day or something like that.
Yeah.
And she was fantastic.
Yeah, it was a nice touch.
And the players' response to her, it was as if Al Pacino was giving them the pre-game, rev up. And Mrs. McCreary did that job, and those players just soaked it up. They're there for each other. They're there for their families. And I know that's true with Essendon as well, but there's still... It just doesn't have that same degree of intensity. There's this
intangible. Yeah. Don't know how to describe it. Don't know how to verbalise it.
Our computers just run out of batteries.
Oh, really? God, that's how long we've been going.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So, look, I don't know if there's much more to say. I mean,
thank you for...
You've been more controlled than me, as usual, but you've got your blood pressure
I've got issues, But, thank you for listening to that ramble. We just thought we'd take that approach today. It wasn't really about reviewing the game because... That sort of performance, it sort of suggests wider, more macro issues at play, in our opinion.
Well, and I think in a lot of people's opinions. So, guys, thank you. Again, apologies. We'll apologise for wasting a lot of your time today with our moaning. But, one of the reasons we actually did this is so that we could have a meaningful chance just amongst the two of us to bitch and moan each week. And I want to be positive. Please trust me. You're the same. We just want to come here every week and praise the team and talk about the great achievements. We're not expecting miracles. We don't think there's a flag around the corner. But, gee, it'd be nice if at least you could see some effort every week and feel that there's something growing and brewing. And we want to be positive.
Consistency of, yes. All right.
So
we're out.
Until the next time.
If you made it this far, again, thank you. We do appreciate it.
Very much so.
Please share your thoughts. Yep. What have we got wrong? What have we got right? Whatever it is, we really do appreciate it.
Happy clappers, you can go. We don't need you. Nuffies out the door now, please. Thank you. But everyone else, please look forward to your comments and remarks. And we got one more game to go.
We do.
And we will come back later in the week with our preview of that match.
We will. Yeah. We will indeed. As always, thanks again for watching.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Out.
Bye now. Bye-bye.